Here we are. Thanks for joining. Whether you are in person, live today, or if you're watching later on your own, thanks for joining. This is the presentation portion of the Share Your Story AAC Scholarship Essay Writing Workshop. Um, Throughout this slide of the piece of the presentation, giving you some tips and tricks, things that might be helpful for you in terms of how to approach scholarship essay writing. Just as a quick note, if you do have further questions about any of the content on this presentation today, please feel free to reach out to me. My name is Ricky Guzman. I use he, him pronouns, or your retention specialist. Your retention specialist at the AAC will be more than happy to support you throughout reviewing and setting up your scholarship essays, whether that be CSUSA or further on. So without further ado, I'll just continue along. Writing effective scholarship essays. So what brings us into this space? So you want to apply for a scholarship. Yes, education is expensive. One of the most effective ways to be able to continue this journey and keep it as a feasible option for us is to really applying for those scholarships. This is money that you are not going to have to repay back, and for many students, this is what makes school possible. So I understand that this can be a really important piece for you. And so goal is for today is to make sure we can make a lot of this information as effective and usable as possible for you. So thinking about approaching your scholarship essays, here are a few key questions to help kind of guide your writing. First off is who is the scholarship from? This is kind of a big question, especially if you are applying for the general CSU scholarship application. Sometimes it's not always clear who's this going to. But if you do have something in mind, like a specific, like a big ticket item that you have in mind, really asking yourself of who is offering the scholarship is going to be important and help guide a little bit more of your writing. Other thing to consider is if this particular, whether it be organization or the college in mind, has a specific mission or goal in mind, this can really help you guide along your writing as well. So what do I mean by that? Well, you could also ask yourself, first off, say you're getting an organization and this organization is offering a scholarship for first generation students. That's really important. If this organization is specifically offering support for first generation students, you might want to consider adding in somewhere within your writing why being a first generation student is important for you. It might not be included within the prompt of the essay, which we'll talk a little bit further, but it's really important as a reader is going through that and they say, this student talks about how being first generation is important to them. Let's give them a little bit more money. So just kind of things to keep in mind, and it might help guide a little bit more of that conversation for you. Other good question kind of ask yourself is, what purpose does the essay have in your application? So for a lot of applications, you might have a few other pieces that go in terms of your supporting documents. That could be things like letters of recommendation. That could be things like your transcript. Some scholarships even have you include a resume or a list of your involvement. So what portion does the essay section really have in terms of your overall application? And I want to open it up to the group here. What do you feel like the essay adds to your application? So whether you not want to unmute or type it in the chat box, what purpose does the essay have in a scholarship application? Give it a minute here. Cool. So we do have a comment in there. Personal introduction or feel for the applicant. And I agree. Another comment, it allows the scholarship reader to get to know you on a more personal level. Excellent. That is absolutely right. Opportunity for you to share what is unique about your story. Thank you very much, Betty. Yes, I agree. Excellent comments. And you are 100% right. The scholarship essay is your chance to share your voice. This is one piece that no other applicant in the pool is going to be able to replicate or share. You might have, similar grades to other applicants. You might even have similar involvement as other applicants. But your essay is your true time to shine. And this will be able to sometimes make the difference of if you have a really neck and neck race of who a scholarship might want to award. Your essay is going to be the part for you to really set yourself apart and stand out in the crowd. So yes, just to kind of recap, your essay is your chance to share your personal voice and your narrative and share more for the scholarship readers to get to know you personally. Other piece there is writing to your audience. Just kind of like understanding your audience um, is important because this isn't necessarily an academic paper. So you don't want it to really sound too rigid. You don't want it to sound like you are just reading off a report of data and figures and stuff like that. It's probably not going to be the effect that you want. If it is, if you are going for that nice personal tone, you want to make sure that it gives your personal authentic voice as well. So I don't necessarily mean that as in we should just kind of talk to your audience as in the way that you would talk to your friends with a whole lot of maybe profanity and emojis, that kind of thing. No, we want to avoid that. We don't want it to be completely informal, but we want them to understand who you are, your goals, your passions, and all those things in your voice to share future with the reader. Cool. So how do we do this? Thing to consider is what to talk about in a scholarship essay. I feel like one of the most nerve-wracking parts of every start of the semester is to have to go through and share your fun fact about yourself. And I always start panicking of like, oh my God, which fun fact am I going to use today? And which fun fact hasn't everybody heard already? And oh no, Betty just stole my fun fact. What am I going to use now? So like, this is going to be a little bit nerve-wracking of how exactly do we decide what we are going to talk about in a scholarship essay. So here's a few more pointers in terms of like how we can really help narrow some of that down and ideally make the process a lot more smooth for you. So first off, answer the question, address the prompt. This is super important. I have reviewed a few scholarship essay competitions, and this is the number one thing that I am looking for is that usually that there is a prompt, there is some kind of specific question that they are asking from you, and you want to make sure that you answer the question. If you don't answer the question in some scholarship competitions, you might get eliminated from the running. This is super important. I cannot stress this enough. Other thing to kind of consider, I don't know, is not a good answer. I know that it can be really difficult, like especially if they are asking things about maybe things about the future, of like where you see yourself. Like, I don't know. I just kind of want to feel things out. It might not hit the same way that you are feeling as that nice easy breezy tone with your readers. So I don't know is generally something that I do not recommend including within your essay. If you are feeling like you really don't know, tell them what you do know, what your interests are. Lead with the things that you do feel like you are confident about. Like, I don't really know what my career path is going to be, but I know I'm really interested in social work and I really like to, support communities of color, that kind of thing. And that's awesome. That gives us some direction. That gives us some idea of who you are as a person rather than just kind of the indecisiveness of, I don't know. It's important to plan. And one of the pieces that I do recommend for folks to kind of think about in terms of overall construction of your essay is to make sure that there is a structure to it, that there is a flow that really goes well. So a good way that you can really help yourself in terms of the structure is to just map it out. Map out your essay. This is similar to other academic writing, maybe persuasive writing if you've done some of that. But mapping out your essay will also help out eliminate the fluff. So what do I mean by the fluff? The fluff is all the stuff that is outside of the answer to the question or us getting to better to know you. So while we are invested and we do want to get to know you, we don't need to know the entire life story. We don't need to know year by year everything that happened for you. This can make it a very a taxing read for a scholarship reader. So eliminating that fluff is going to be important to really keep your essay focused and to the point of things that your scholarship readers are going to be looking for within your essay. Um, Handling that, it's also important to like mapping out, like say you have 3 body paragraphs with 3 important pieces that you really want your scholarship readers to walk away with. Um, I might consider you challenging yourself to maybe add a 4th. And the reason being that sometimes 3 is just not quite enough to really get a sense of who you are. So if you feel like you haven't a good amount to really offer 4 up, and that you feel like a 4th would be um, really connected within what the rest of your context of what you're sharing, I challenge yourself to maybe include 4. And that could, set that a little bit higher for you, to maybe make that little difference for you. Perhaps most importantly, in terms of like talking about mapping out your essay, you really want to make sure that there is a structure or a flow that goes throughout your essay that makes sense to the reader. This could be something such as like chronological. You could just do it specifically in terms of like things that happened in the sequence of time. This is the earliest thing that happened, and then this is the most recent thing that happened. That's totally fine. That's a good structure for you. You might also want to think about, well, if time isn't the most effective thing, what if I started with the most effective and I ended with the second most effective point that I really want to bring up to the reader? Or vice versa. Maybe you start with the second most and then end with the most effective. That's okay too. That's structure as well. As long as you can really tie along and bring your reader along with you, so that they don't feel a little bit scrambled. They don't feel like they're having to piece together where you're coming at with all of this stuff, and really makes your essay flow quite beautifully. That would be lovely to see as a reader. Also consider, sometimes a scholarship might request external information, or if it's something that you feel like is important for you, you could also include that as external information. I didn't put it on the slideshow, but something really important to include is cite your information. Absolutely make sure that if you are including external information from like either statistics or anything else, make sure you do cite your information, even if it is for just a regular get to know you essay. It's a bit of a red flag if we're missing that. But yeah, if you do have information that you would like to add, yeah, this could be statistics, it could be a bar graph, it could be even a nice chunky quote, that kind of thing. You just want to make sure that you plan that really intentionally, when and where you want to bring that up, and making sure that it ties something personal to you. Um, so if you are giving, graduation rates for high schoolers, that's important information. We would love to know that, but also tie into, again, the main point of a scholarship essay is to why it is important for you, and why you're including that within your scholarship essay. So just some general information within there of like how to include that kind of thing. Cool. Any questions about those pieces so far? Quick moment there. And apologies if it is a ton of content. I know a lot of scholarship content is out there. A lot of folks are really interested in how to get you the most money, which I totally get to. But please pause me, chat me up in the chat box. I'm more than happy to recap any of this stuff. Okay, moving along. Another piece. So as we are discussing a little bit about what to include, thinking about how an essay is your opportunity to share your voice and yeah, that personal touch to your application. It's really important to lead with our strengths. And so a lot of times what comes up with scholarship essays of like, I want to stand out from the pack. I really want people to recognize everything that I am. So I'm going to tell them everything awful that has happened to me since grade 4 and go from there. And yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily the impact that you're going to really want to make, and that's going to be most effective for your scholarship essay readers. So I do want to say that there's nothing more you than your experiences. This is absolutely your place to share what that information is, what sets you apart from this, but it's going to also be really important to really show the scholarship readers of who you are and how you overcame those challenges. So that's later in the thing. But Thing to include, as you're part of mapping this out, you don't want to leave your big personal kind of statement showing who you are for the end of the essay. It might feel effective, but you're also losing out on all of the time in the rest of the essay that you're using that your reader could be starting to get a sense of who you are. So don't delay. It's okay to really just kind of bring them along. That can really help bring and build a lot of interest throughout your essay. So I don't recommend just kind of like throwing it into the conclusion and then just kind of hoping that it sticks, that kind of thing. Maybe leave it for your first body paragraph to say, um, this is something that is important for you, that you have an interest in, and then that way your reader can kind of connect to that and then see how it builds into the rest of the essay as well. Kind of as mentioned within like the planning phase of thinking about what you would like your reader to come away knowing about you, and how they're going to remember your essay. This is your time to shine, so really giving them that context within the entire big picture is going to be most effective. We absolutely have challenges. We all have challenges, but rather than just kind of throwing out how things have happened, etc., it's going to be really important to understand and how you share with your reader of how you overcame those challenges. What kind of skills are you using? What kind of what were your strengths that you were able to uh, bring up and really help get through some of those things. We at the AAC we see a lot of students and we have really awesome skills, and sometimes it can be hard to talk about like how how we get a little bit stuck in this deficit oriented, like, oh, despite things happening, that kind of thing. Well, we really want to encourage you to think about the strengths and the areas in which you have made those things and the benefit that you are bringing to the university, to the scholarship committee, to this program of your great strengths and assets that you are bringing into those spaces. So just kind of like leading with your strengths. Additionally, an essay that really stays positive and really stays focused within those strengths is going to be a lot more effective for you in terms of like how to set yourself apart, rather than just kind of leaving it where it's at and not showing your demonstrated growth and your commitment to communities, etc., and to yourself, your educational journey. So, and I kind of want to open it up here a little bit of in what ways can we share our strengths? In what ways might we be able to show our scholarship readers um, how we have overcame things, how we are, sharing, again, strengths, but how we are, as students, overcoming things and getting through those obstacles. What kind of things come to mind for folks? And staff also feel free to share as well if you have a. Oh, good. So one option there is maybe share a personal anecdote. Excellent. I think that is a great way to really share to your scholarship committee of share what you're about. If something is important for you, maybe like a story that gives an example of something that you have overcame. Very effective way to draw your audience in. Anything else before we continue along? Ooh, another in the chat box, a quote that really connects you and your passion. That is awesome. I think that's a really great way to, yeah, connect. That's the key word there. It's showing connection, showing the way drawing into a bigger picture, being able to show you within context of what you are, really hoping the reader to get out of it. So that's excellent. Thank you. Oop, we got another one there. Possibly a personal story of how you want to give back. I like that. And additionally, this does kind of bring up something for me of one good little kind of piece of, I guess, advice, but a little way that you can kind of push a little bit further is I know that for a lot of students that giving back to community is super important, and this might be a good driving force of why you want to study and do the things that you're doing. Um, but really good way to just kind of kick up that effectiveness just a little bit in terms of like getting the reader getting to know you is to think about ways of saying, instead of just like giving back to, people, or I want to help people, that seems really broad. That seems like really out there. Now, remembering back to our who is the scholarship and who is the scholarship coming from, if this is say like a Hispanic heritage scholarship, something like that, something from the Latinx community, if you want to just take this a little bit further, maybe you just get really specific about it and you say, hey, instead of just giving back to communities, I want to give back to Latinx communities. I want to give back to Latinx mental health services. I want to give back to, students of color, that kind of thing. And already the reader is going to get a better idea, a better picture of you as a whole and what you're passionate about and what things that they can expect from your work going forward and why you would be a really good investment for them. Another piece that came up in the chat box is a story about our families and communities. I think that is excellent. I think that also shares some really good context of who you are, and yeah, your identities and how you're bringing that forward as a great strength for you. Um, that's excellent. Thank you. Thanks, folks. Great suggestions there, and I think that these are all excellent things that you should include within your pieces. Okay, next up. Okay, review. Oh yes, okay. Maybe the most important step of any scholarship essay writing is reviewing. First off, or I don't think I even put it in here, it's just need to make sure you give yourself time. Do not leave these for the last minute. I encourage you to really space it out. So my first bullet point there is give yourself time to think about it is if you're ever writing and you're like, oh yeah, I'm on a total flow. I'm totally getting like, I'm gonna get all of the money this time around. That's cool. I bet you will. But give yourself just a little bit of time to breathe. A scholarship essay is just like the best sourdough starter. You just need to give it time to breathe. And if you want to just take a pause, you have a good writing session for one day, one night. Make sure you give yourself a pause, come back to it the next morning, read it again, and see how it is, see how it hits, see if the pieces that you're really wanting to shine really shine through, and what you would like to see from there. So that's what I mean by take a pause, and yeah, see if your ideas have any time to grow. It might sound a little bit different. It might hit just a little bit different. So I do think that's an important piece. Another review tip is read your essay out loud. Um, it's a great way to hear errors in grammar or tone. Sometimes these things are a little bit tricky to just kind of like hear or read as we are kind of going through it and just kind of typing up on our computers. So um, yeah, no, that's a quick, easy way to check for those spaces. Um, even if you do it with like with a pair with a buddy, you can read your essay out loud to folks, and you might hear the grammar pieces not quite hitting right, or if it sounds if the connection points aren't really hitting where you hope they will. It can be a good tip for you. Take it to the writing center, which absolutely they would be very helpful in terms of getting out all those grammar pieces, really helping you structure your essay. And I think that that's a really helpful resource, especially as they are online this semester. Yeah, so please, if you are working remotely throughout this semester, that the Writing Center is still an option for you. And you can get that reviewed that way too. Also, kind of like as a piece of that is that if you are thinking of adding in external information in a Writing Center and I guess library in general, can also help you out with the citing and the citations. That way you can make sure that you're not plagiarizing, such like that. That can be really helpful too. ask your retention specialist to review. Always, always, always happy to review essays for students. I think it's, yeah, just a really great time to, connect and just be able to get to know like a little bit more areas that are important for you and how we can be supportive in those areas. I guess the one little asterisk there is please give us plenty of time to read. I love to read scholarship essays. I want to make sure that I give a lot of good effort into it, and so sending those over to us early is going to be a lot more effective, and we can give you a lot better suggestions if you give us more time to read those. Other piece is to get an outside perspective. So sometimes with scholarship essays, similar to like any academic course essay, sometimes we can feel a little bit more comfortable within our field, and that really leads to use of like jargon and things like that. Your scholarship review committee might not be connected into the field as you are. So getting an outside perspective could be really helpful in helping bring your audience along and making sure that it is effective in like connecting all those pieces throughout your body paragraphs and making sure that those do highlight the areas that you want them to highlight. So, and they can also catch things that you might have overlooked. Yeah, getting that perspective might say like, well, for you, this might mean one thing, but to us, this might mean something else. And so getting that outside perspective can be really helpful as well. And then other piece to kind of consider is that despite all of these review techniques, you need to strike a balance. And you need to know, you need to draw a line and know when it is time to just stop reviewing and kind of determine when do you know when you have over-reviewed. So that's the question for this slide. For the folks in our audience today, our live studio audience, when do you know if you have over-reviewed? Might be scratching my head, like, can you over-review? Oh yeah, you can over-review. Sarah suggests, if your eyes are bleeding, yes, that is a good hint. If your eyes are bleeding, you have over-reviewed and you might want to take a nap. Let's see here. Ooh, yeah, one suggestion is that the person tends to try and change a lot of their essay when you're over-reviewing it. That is a thing, yeah. Another suggestion in the chat box is when you start making revisions that take your paper essay to a previous version. Good point, yeah. If it's starting to look pretty similar to something else, yeah. Other in the chat box is paper is never perfect and always easy to have room for correctos. Yeah, I think so. So that's good. And then questions like asking, is there such a thing? Yes, yes. So a piece that I want to consider in terms of like over reviewing is that ask yourself if it after reading or hearing it and something like that, does it still sound like you? Does it still sound like your voice is shining through this piece of writing? Because as we mentioned, the essay is the important part to talk about you. If you are reading through it and it sounds a little bit like a textbook might have written a novel about you, then that's your clue of like we might have over reviewed this. It might be losing a little bit of that personal touch. So just kind of like reviewing and thinking about what that means for you and your voice can be kind of important. And don't feel like you have to compromise. If you feel like at a certain point where maybe you get a suggestion of like, do you really want to include this? But if it's something that's important for you, then don't feel like you have to compromise it. Keep it in there. If it's something that means that demonstrates your growth and where you have come and what something that is important that you want this reader to know as they're walking away, then absolutely include it. And I think that that's going to be important to lead with your authentic self. Cool. And with that, I mean, just a few pieces. These are kind of some of the things that we hope, that I hope that you can kind of walk away with. So just to recap, I have about 5 areas that I'm hoping that can kind of help you review. So if you are watching from home, or I guess we're all home right now, if you're watching later, here are 5 categories to kind of see how your essay is coming together. So this isn't something like, this isn't like the grading rubric that your essay committee is going to be, scholarship committee is going to be reviewing. They're going to have something different almost always. But it's a good way to just kind of recap for yourself to see if this essay is capturing the stuff that you hope that it is, and if it's at that next level. So first off, answering the question. First thing I kind of mapped out in terms of like what we want to include, really answering like, did the writer provide an answer to the question or prompt of the essay? You want to make sure that that's included in there. Next up, thinking about your voice. Voice, again, being the main priority within this piece of writing. Is the writing personable? And allow the reader to get a better understanding of the writer's personal voice. We want to know. Good piece there is structure. This is kind of like the math and science portion of your essay writing. Is the writing really flowing naturally throughout each point? And is it connecting and easy to follow? This part can be hard to determine on our own, and this is where that outside perspective can be really important, determining of whether or not your structure is hitting where it needs to hit. Strengths focused. Is your essay really staying positive and showing how you, the writer, overcame those challenges? That's going to be important. Pieces there of yeah, we want to know that drive. We want to know what sets you apart from these things, and those strengths are going to be great areas to really determine that. And last but not least, there of course is compelling. Are you building that interest? Are you using your strengths and the structure to really compel and bring the reader along with you? And at the end of your essay, does the reader want to know more about the writer? I think that's a really great way to kind of frame this of like, yeah, if you read a really good scholarship essay, you're like, wow, that was cool. Like, I want to know who this person is. Let's give them money. And that's basically it. That's how scholarships are awarded. Hopefully that is helpful for you. Definitely using these pieces just to kind of self-guide, go throughout your yeah, reviewing, and hopefully that's helpful as you're getting an idea of where even maybe to start with that, all the way up to until you're ready to hit submit and go through there. So. At this part, I do want to open it up for questions really quick, just in case we want to include those into our recording for today. Before we go on to our next activity. So any questions from folks or thoughts, comments, things that you would like to add or share with the rest of our group today? Okay. Well, then again, I think I'm going to add in just a note for our viewers for later on from the YouTube page. Just remember to connect. If you do have questions that come up from this video section, we'd be happy to support in any ways possible. And yes, thanks for joining in for the recording. We're going to stop the recording. Maybe if I can figure it out.